Honorable viewers, welcome all of you to my YouTube channel, Department of English. Today, I would like to share with you a literary analysis of summarized W. Maugham's The analysis of the short story The Lanson. So let's get started. The text I'm going to analyze represents a short story entitled The Lanson, written by a prominent English novelist, short story writer, playwright, and essayist Samuel Maugham. First of all, I would like to say some words about the title of the text. The Lanson, the title of this text, is rather ironic. If we consult a dictionary, we can find out that the word Lanson means light, snake, but as we can see hereafter, a light snake turns to be an abundant and expensive meal. The text represents the first person narration. The use of pronouns I, my, myself is predominant. Like example, did I remember? My heart sank as for myself. I chose the cheapest dish. The plot of the text is the following. The narrator, a book writer, recognizes a woman with whom he had lunch years ago. He starts remembering the unforgettable evening. He was young, lived in Paris, and could barely make ends meet. She had read of his books and wrote a letter to congratulate him on his book. He invited her for lunch, and to his horror, she chose an expensive restaurant. He had only 80 francs to last him the rest of the month. She ordered one expensive dish after another, and when the bill came, he paid and was left with no money at all. However, in the end, the narrator feels that he has finally had his revenge when he sees that the lady now put a lot of weight. Maugham offers the reader a description sustained by dialogues that have a source in a flashback. The author presents a flashback soon at the beginning of the text, and this flashback becomes an important detail. Did I remember? Which allows us to know what had happened 20 years ago. The flashback goes to the last paragraph when the narrator comes back to the present time and shows us that he had been revenged. The tone of the text is ironic. The irony is presented here in a stressed form, mainly in the skin of the restaurant. The given text can be divided into three logical parts. The number one is presented by two first paragraphs when the narrator sees the lady at the theater in 20 years since their first meeting, which recurs to his memory in the second logical part. I would like to say that it is the story in the story, so in the short story, so this very part can be divided into three structural parts. I think that it has an open structure. It possesses the exposition, the story, and the climax. The exposition begins with the sentence, it was like quotation, it was 20 years ago and I was living in Paris, and ends with the words, I answered that I would meet my friend by correspondence at Foyers on Thursday at 12:30. Here the reader learns about the place of action, Paris and time. It was 20 years ago. We learn that the main narrator was very poor and could hardly keep body and soul together. The reader gets information about the events which preceded the meeting of the main characters. The protagonist got the letter from a lady who was admired by his work. She wrote that she was interested to have sat with him and suggested meeting at Fires, one of the most expensive restaurants. He was flattered and couldn't say no to her. The author uses epithets little Lanson and modest Lanson are in contradiction with the luxurious restaurant fires at which the French senators eat. I think it is used to achieve the ironic effect. The epithet tiny room and the please to keep body and soul together and underlines the fact that he lived in want. Then comes the main part. It begins with the narrator's description of his admirer and lasts till the last sentence. The action takes place in the restaurant, yet the reader learns more about the main characters. They are presented both directly and indirectly. So the male character is the ingenious one, as we may note through the expressions from his way of thinking, acting, and speech. Foyt's was so far beyond my means that I had never even thought of going there. I was flattered, and I was too young to have learned to say no to a woman. This and other examples show us the narrator's traditional concepts. He is also an educated man, polite, from a good family tradition. As for the female character, we can get a clear idea about her from what the narrator tells about her. She was not so young as I expected, and in appearance imposing rather than attractive. She was, in fact, a woman of 40, a charming age, but not one that excites a sudden and devastating passion and first sight. And she gave me the impression of having more teeth, white and large, and even then were necessary for any practical purpose. She was talkative, but since she seemed inclined to talk about me, I was prepared to be an attentive listener. So we can see that the narrator is the mouthpiece of the author. And also we learn about her through her actions, behavior, and speech. Example, she refers, I never eat anything for lunch, but she eats everything she can. As the narrator says, I watched the abundant women thrust the asparagus down her throat in voluptuous mouthfuls, and in my polite way discussed on the condition of the drama in the Balkans. So we can make a conclusion that the woman is smart, experienced, selfish, cold, without any feeling except like it to fulfill her desires. I think that he perceives her like a beast of prey, and the hyperbole she gave me that impression, having more teeth, white and large, and even then were necessary for any practical purpose, proves this idea. The dialogues between the host and the guest are effective and permit the reader to witness what is happening. We can easily perceive how the writer makes the tone vary in the words of the characters. The woman's tone never silences while she sits with the host and orders the most expensive dishes. and the repetition of the same phrase proves it. I never eat anything for luncheon, and I never eat more than one thing, and that is the key sentence of the text. The woman's insistence in saying that she does not eat anything for lunch is in the stressed mark irony, for she acts like a heroine. The contrast in this short story gives origin to a complex game between the host and his guest, and it is sustained through the situation of the host, which becomes worse as time goes by. We can feel the suspense to be developed through the words of the narrator from the very beginning. At the beginning of the text, we notice his willingness to please her. But as time passes, his utterances become shorter and shorter, and his tone becomes more and more subdued. Example metaphor: my heart sank a little, I turned a little pale, my heart sank, panic seized me. He answered generously, I answered promptly, I asked faintly. He becomes less generous as he is more worried about how much he will have to pay. It was the only thing he could think about. The tension gets to his highest point when the bill comes. I believe this moment to be the climax of the text. Summary of the lesson. The writer of the lesson, William Somerset Maugham, in this short story relates about a lady who is an admirer of his stories. She wins the author's favor and expenses her wish to meet him at high-class restaurant. William exposes the false motives of modest eating habits of the middle classes with a touch of humor. 20 years ago, the author was living in Paris when he had met a lady who is an admirer of his stories. She had met him at a play and relates to him the incident during the interval which had occurred at that time. She had read a book written by him and had written a letter to him about her views. Another letter was posted stating about her visit to Paris and her desire to have a little luncheon at the Poets, a restaurant where French senators eat. William was not a rich man and had never even thought of visiting that restaurant, nor did he possess the art of refusing her request. Estimating the cost of a luncheon, we should not cost more than 15 francs. He decided to cut down coffee from his menu so that he could have enough for himself for the next 2 weeks. His meeting was fixed on Thursday at 12:30 through correspondence. The lady was in her 40s, talkative. That's means talkative and not attractive. She had ordered for salmon and caviar while the salmon was being prepared. William had ordered for the cheapest dish mutton chops. After the meal, she had ordered white champagne. She kept enjoying the meal and chatting about art, literature, and music while William kept wondering about the bill. The bill of fare was soaring above that which he had anticipated. When the waiter had come with the bill, she waved him aside with an air of gesture and ordered for asparagus, the horribly expensive dish. William's heart sank, his mouth watered, and yet he had to quell his emotions. Adding to worsen the situation, she ordered for ice cream and then coffee, while the same announcing that she never ate anything for luncheon. Just a bit. Thoughts kept reeling through William's William's mind about how he was going to pay the exorbitant bill, or how could he pay an act of his pocket having been picked. To his utter dismay, he heard waiter walked up to the table with a large basket full of huge pieces. She picked up one, protesting that her meal was just a snack and that she could certainly enjoy the piece. The bill was finally paid, and William found himself with just a few francs for the tips and not a penny left in his pocket for the whole month. William believes that he had had his revenge, for then, when the 20 years had passed by, he met her weighing 136 kilometers. Sorry, kilograms. Weight it was. The theme. The primary theme of the short story Luncheon by Somerset W is appearance versus reality. The speaker in Luncheon wishes from the beginning that his date would be a beautiful woman. He imagines portrayal of graceful lady in his mind, but when he goes to have lunch with her, she appears as surprising ballast, a total opposite to his imagination. Not only her appearance but also her dialogues express that she is an extremely fast food loving and ravenous woman who does not even think a bit about the cost the speaker would have to pay for the lunch. She has a very good appetite and gobbles a lot of money also. The most interesting part is the verbal irony hidden in the lines she utters to the speaker, like she does not eat too much, etc. The irony concealed in her speeches helps to develop the main theme. These ironies make Lanson a comic story in true sense. So that's all about today's topic. For the time being, thanks for patience here.